everybody. We are back here at the AI Engineer World Fair Conference in San Francisco, and I'm super excited to be here with Ron from Flox.
Excited to be here as well.
All right, so what is Flox? People probably know Nix, but give the quick story of the company.
Yeah, happy to. I mean, if folks don't know Nix, right, so Nix is one of the largest package managers in the world, one of the larger open source communities. I think the whole idea behind Nix is 23 years ago. It's past legal age now. The whole idea is like, what happens if we can architect all of software in the same base architecture, which is kind of like a cyclical chicken and egg, right? Because if WorkOS is packaged in Nix, it means that all of WorkOS's dependencies needs to be packaged in Nix and cyclically all the way down. But 20-something years later and north of 10,000 active monthly contributors, we are the largest package manager. Now we can do things like that where we can take any project out there and package it with the Nix-based architecture. And once you have that running, there's just a ton of benefits, right? It's fast, it's lightweight, it's secure. The whole concept of an environment or a whatever you need for the software to run, having it run on anything, like that's kind of the concept behind Nix. And yeah, Flox started actually by my co-founder back at D. Shaw, one of the larger hedge funds, about 5 years ago. And he brought Nix into the firm, scaled it up, built a platform. That platform became Flox with the whole idea of if we want to take Nix or the principles of Nix and the values of it in scale into the workplace, into the enterprise, there's a bunch of things that you have to do. We do them, and we allow a lot of the Fortune 5s to like use Nix at work. But bottom line, it's like we allow engineering teams to standardize the way that they run environments across the entire stack. Sometimes it replaces Docker, sometimes it replaces a container, and that's the 60-second version of it.
Love it. Standardized, reproducible, durable kind of artifacts for like building software. It's kind of always the holy grail. Like you have before this stuff that's built on people's local machines is different than what's in your staging acceptance environment. That's what's different in production. So I understand Nix is like, it was kind of initially solving that enormous problem for the whole world. What's different about what's happening now with AI? Like the relevance of this technology for this next era of software, maybe not even talking about agents yet, just like kind of the AI research and development and just like the acceleration of the use of software in the world.
Yeah, so I think the whole concept is that, going back to my Nix pitch at the beginning, which obviously I highly recommend folks check it out, it's that Nix, the way I look at it, Nix, Flox, whatever you're talking about, is pretty much the cryptographic layer of any bit that your software inside of the firm needs in order to run, right? And what I mean by cryptographic is that it's kind of like a calculator, right? You don't need a model to calculate 5 times 5. We have algorithms for that. We have like modules for that can do that at O1 or O whatever. So to your question about AI, without saying agents yet, I think it's just that the explosion of who's a software developer, everyone's now developing software. How are we, I think there's 2 ways to look at it. One, more software, more chaos. So if you can standardize more of that under one base architecture so that you can share it, run it on anything, and it will work the same way it did today, a year from now. But there's also the other side of it where we're actually taking AI into kind of the security spaces and the software supply chain spaces as well, right? Where if I know everything that's running inside of my environment, inside of my software, my model, whatever it is at the infra level, I have a lot more assurances, and also I can create a lot more benefit because I'm only bringing in what's needed. I know exactly where everything is. And one of the most recent examples is, obviously Mythos has been kind of scary for some, but if there's a known CVE, you know exactly where that is because of the file path name. You don't even need to scan, right? So if you have like a light LLM vulnerability or whatever came up more recently, we can show you that in O1. There it is. Now all you have to do to either remediate that is bump it up or bump it down to the last version that worked. And that's where the reproducibility aspect and the hardened aspect really comes in.
Is there an element of this too that's needing something like Nix in order to quickly roll out changes for organizations? If you think about And just know there's all these like big enterprise systems where they don't want to touch it. They like, the server's been running for 10 years. We don't even know if we can restart it. How does that kind of stuff fit in? Like the modernization of, maybe even going back a little bit further, modernization of like legacy IT systems.
Yeah, so I think the core aspect is that first you can just Floxify or Nixify, right? So you can take that thing and you can turn it into the Nix-based architecture, which is now super easy. Like I think it's almost fully automated to the extent that I have a domain buying problem. I'll address this in this closed forum in a 6,000 person conference with you. So it's like we're now going to be launching soon like Flox Me, which again, it's just like the models are pretty good. They're good enough to be able to actually do a lot of this work for folks. So I think in terms of the legacy products, like folks can actually move that off to be based on a Nix-based architecture stack. What you've solved there is that how it's working today, now I can reassure you that it would always work that way. Now, in order to modernize it, that's kind of a different paradigm where now that we have it running in a Nix-based architecture, now we can start making changes, but with assurance, almost like with conviction, right? So now if something breaks, we just roll back. So it's almost like we create this atomic unit for the firm, and then hopefully, I can't solve the major tier 1 banks like legacy problems because they've been building band-aids of like 20 years of software, but hopefully what we're doing is we're creating that core nucleus that now you can iterate on, break it, try something more modern, but worst case, you literally have a side-by-side environment that works on any type of machine, so that stack never has to go anywhere, pretty much.
Love it. Let's talk about agents. So agents are being used to write software, and then they're also changing the way organizations operate because they're running agents inside. We have sandboxes, there's like other types of agentic systems that are taking over menial tasks for people. How is Nix being used? I'm curious for both of those, both the software authoring part and then also kind of the like business process automation.
Yeah, so I think today, I can speak more to it on the Flox side just because of the customers and the user base that are coming in that we have visibility, but at the end of the day, it's being used in a few different areas. One is that folks are using Flox to just spin up agents because again, an agent is a piece of software. If we can ensure that the environment that piece of software needs to run is fully deterministic, why not, right? So a lot of folks are using Flox to spin up their agents. There's now a large customer that's like building an always on agent, right? So not only are we solving this like instantiating problem, but also the whole build time, run time, pulling it back to local, right? Those things start kind of, I guess, getting bigger and bigger as you're running more agents across the stack or in the cloud. So for us on the Flox and Nix side, it's just that you can actually use it to create a container that has an agent. You can actually use it to create a VM or a micro VM that you can then use as a sandbox. A few of the sandboxes companies, I don't know how many are out there now. I don't know if you're keeping count.
There's over 100, yeah.
A few of them actually use Flox at the core layer to define the environment, because once you do, you have no walled garden. Agent can be running on a Ubuntu Linux box, you can be on a Mac. Right, tomorrow morning you might find that NVIDIA did optimization for whatever version of Linux. You can move around and you have that full portability layer using the environment as your core module. But I think that's a little bit of what's happening with agents. The other side of it is just that you can actually, when you pretty much ensure that the agent has to operate within an enclosed kind of hermetic environment built by like a Nix-based architecture, you actually minimize the scope of where it can actually leak out into, and you actually create a much more hermetic, I would say, closure around it. And then again, you can push it into a container, into the cloud or wherever you want, but you're not forced to just use it in that one.
Yeah, awesome. How is the development of Flox, and maybe Nix more broadly, changing with AI? Like the ability to use AI to write code. I feel like there's a lot of people, maybe at this conference too, that are building kind of front-end software experiences.
Yeah.
They're vibe coding, they're shipping things very fast. Code review, or the lack thereof, is like a very popular topic. But with Flox, this is kind of underlying, very important substrate it runs on top of. I'm curious like how you're applying AI to that that way of doing engineering.
So internally or kind of in the product itself?
More internally.
Yeah.
As you're developing this.
So-
like, are your customers saying, we want your code to be small batch, handcrafted, written by humans still because it's
No,
low level,
I mean,
or?
do you have customers that are asking
We don't
that?
today, no.
They might be, it could be like a deal.
But I think there is always this question of, like, the automation allows you to accelerate so fast.
Yeah.
Where are surfaces where, if something's easily reversible, the blast radius is either minimized or non-existent, that you can just ship quickly behind feature flags.
Yeah.
And then where are areas where, like, this actually needs to be extremely scrutinized and battle tested and hardened before anybody gets it.
I mean, I would say that the biggest change for us, I don't know how you felt it, came around November, December of last year. I think that's where, we were AI pilled before that, but I think that's where the models were actually creating substantial value inside of the firm. And one of the first things we did that had the most amount of impact is one of our engineers came in and said that, and I feel like now this is quite common. Like, I'm hearing actually a few companies that spin up around this concept alone. Pretty much that we had to have a way to centralize the company's knowledge so that we can also fragment that off into a Nix-based, almost Flox-based architecture to then be able to provide context for the different agents that are actually solving problems inside of Flox. So I think that was a big move for us. We called it Forge. And I think we even open sourced part of it because we were like, this is pretty cool, use it. But the entire concept is that we have an entire brain inside of the firm that has the context of everything, but the context of everything doesn't actually help you. It's the ability to compartmentalize what's important for the task that an engineer, a product person, a designer, a customer is asking for, and then tying it back, right? It's like, what decision did Bill, the software team lead, make a month ago? Is that still meaningful to what decision I'm going to make or build as part of my agent? Otherwise, you're getting sprawl and chaos. So I think that was meaningful. The second thing that really took us over the curve was pretty much the ability for the agent, like instructing it, to break down the tasks until they reach a certain level of defined conviction. Why? That allowed us to also build more like human psychology trust, right? With this like automated mechanism of like shipping software, because I think our team has 50x output in 6 months without growing like the engineering base. But what that does is that we can then toggle what level of conviction we're willing to entertain for a fully automated end-to-end delivery of a module, of a feature, of a fix, of a self-improvement mechanism, right? If it's like on the web UI, I'm okay with you being 50+% conviction, launch it, see if it fails in CI, see what happens. But because Flox is so infra and instrumental, kind of like at the package management environment layer, right? Things on our catalog were like 80%. So what the agent does is like, it takes a task, takes a feature request, and then continuously breaks it up into smaller and smaller chunks of work until that subset meets the bar of conviction, and then it automates them. So if it can't automate it, meaning that the bar is like lower or higher, then it will offload off to like a human in the loop. But that gave us a lot of ability because there were some things that we were getting bottlenecked on, right? Where it's like, oh, this thing is, I don't know, it's 100 human hours of work. An agent can do it in 10, but 10% of it is really architecturally critical. So we're just gonna do 100 human hours of work. And now what the agent is doing is like, it's taking the 90%, completing that work, and leaving the 10 to one of our senior engineers to kind of like be human in the loop.
What do those engineers do with the remaining time? They're building more stuff. You said they're accelerating. You're doing more. You're seeing it across the board.
So I think we're just thinking about the way that we're building software very differently inside of the company. The amount of our ability to actually we're like a 30-person team today. Our ability to like address the level of customers that we have wouldn't have been where it's at without all of this internal tooling around agents and AI-based like flows and automation, right? So we would have probably needed to hire at least 10 to 15 more engineers on the team today. I think the other ways is completely changing how we're approaching the customer problem space, where we have like tier 1 banks. I mean, some of the public folks that we're working with are on like the Fortune 5, right? Anyways, it's pretty wide. And what it allows us to do is it allows us to kind of focus on the customer base, their requests, spin up POCs first, run it with them. Like we could be sitting here and it's like, oh, WorkOS needs this one thing. We have huge images and we need to remove that. And be like, we can do that for you, but we need this shim, right? Instead of doing a lot of product research to make sure that we're not wasting our time and prioritizing where the work is being done. I feel like we can give that in your hands. We can have that in your hands, behind a feature flag, to your point, in 90 minutes. Right? Why wouldn't I do that? Now, obviously, you'll either use it, not use it, you'll respond, like we'll be able to track where it's going. But I think that's giving us much more real-time data about what's good, what's not good, what needs to be built and actually pushed up to the main product versus longer term cycles.
Love it. Ron, this is really exciting. Thanks so much for stopping by. It's great to see you. Chat more about Flox.